When we're simplifying exponential expressions, I tell everybody to remember their order of operations, which begins with parentheses, then exponents, then multiplication and division, and finally adding and subtracting. This will be helpful in reminding us what to do with the powers when we're dealing with exponents. That's because whatever we see happening to the exponents, we're going to do what's right underneath it. So if we're multiplying two exponents together, we're going to add their powers. If we're dividing two exponents, we subtract their powers. If we're taking one exponent to another exponent, we're going to a power to a power, we're going to multiply those powers. And when we have a set of parentheses, we're just going to pass the power out to everything inside. So in part A, when we have negative 4m squared to the third, that means that we're going to take negative 4 to the third power and m squared to the third power. Well, negative 4 to the third is easily calculated as negative 64. But m squared to the third, this is where we're taking a power to another power. So we look over at our order of operations. A power to a power is an exponent. We're going to do what's right underneath it. That is, multiply those powers together. So this will end up being m to the sixth. In the second example, 5x to the third times 2x to the fifth. Well, obviously 5 times 2 is 10, but now we have to deal with those exponents. And since we're multiplying these two together, we go over to our order of operations. Here's multiplying. We're going to do what's right underneath it, and that is add the powers together. 3 plus 5 is 8. In part C, there's no operations that are happening. However, in the directions, it says simplify using only positive exponents. And right now, the w has a negative exponent. In order to take care of that, all we have to do is leave negative 6 in the numerator and then bring the w to the negative second power down into the denominator. Then the power becomes positive. So a negative power puts it on the opposite side of the fraction and becomes positive. In part D, we got a big old fraction with lots of parts to it, but don't get scared. Just take it one piece at a time. First of all, I'll deal with the coefficients. And 20 divided by 4 is 5. Now we move over to the a's, and with each of these variables, we're dividing an exponent. So if I see division, I'm going to do subtraction. So with the a's, I'm going to go 4 minus 6, which is negative 2. With the b's, since we don't see an exponent there, we can assume that those powers are 1. And b to the first minus b to the first, 1 minus 1 is 0. And then with the c's, again, there's a 1. 2 minus 1 is 1. Now it's just a matter of simplifying, making all the powers positive. So 5 will stay in the numerator. A to the negative 2 will come down to the denominator and become positive. B to the 0, well, anything to the 0 is just 1. And then we're left with c to the first, which is c. In part E, we have this whole thing to the 0 power. Anything to the 0 power is just 1. In part F, we have one that's a bit more complicated. We can't do it all at once, but we can just take it in parts and simplify. So first of all, we're multiplying a fraction, which means we multiply straight across the numerator and straight across the denominator. Just looking at the numerators, 3 times 2, that's 6. Now, in dealing with the x's, we're going to multiply those x's together, which means we're going to add the exponents. So 2 plus negative 3 is negative 1. And then we'll still have a y, which is to the first power. In the denominator, we're going to multiply there as well. 2 times 9, that's 18. Then deal with the x's. X to the fourth times x to the first is x to the fifth. And the y's, the only y we have there is y to the fourth. Now we have it simplified down into one fraction, so take it just one factor at a time. 6 over 18, that's 1/3. The x's, we're dividing exponents, so subtract the powers, and negative 1 minus 5 is negative 6. With the y's, we're dividing those as well, so subtract the powers. 1 minus 4 is negative 3. Now, to finish it all up, we're going to take both the x and the y and put them in the denominator because they have negative exponents. That means our final answer is going to be 3. And when we put x to the negative 6 in the denominator, the power becomes positive. So 3x to the 6, same thing with y to the positive third. And that's our simplified answer. In part G, it's a little bit more complicated, but still just take it one piece at a time. So the first thing we're going to want to do with each set of parentheses is to pass out this exponent. Since we're dealing with the parentheses, everything gets an exponent. That's going to mean 15 to the negative first, and then a to the third to the negative first, b to the negative third to the negative first. In the next set of parentheses, we're going to pass out the 2. So 5 squared, a squared, and b to the third squared. Everything gets squared. So now let's simplify each of these 6 factors one at a time. 15 to the negative first just means 1 over 15, and then the power becomes positive. In the next 2 factors, we're taking a power to a power. That means we're going to have to multiply. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. For b, negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3. Moving on to the second half, 5 squared is 25. There's that a squared. And then b to the third to the second, again, is a power to a power. So we're going to multiply those two together to get b to the 6. For the next step, let's combine just a little bit more. For instance, in the numbers, 1/15 times 25, that's 25 over 15. The a's, we'll take a to the negative third times a to the second. Since we're going to multiply those exponents, we add the powers. Negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. Same thing with the b's. B to the third times b to the 6th. We're multiplying, so add the powers to get b to the 9th. One more small piece of simplifying. With this fraction, 5 is a factor both in the numerator and the denominator. We cancel out a 5 and we'll get 5 on top, 3 in the denominator. So, all together, we'll have 5 over 3. And the a, since it has a negative exponent, will go in the denominator, a to the first. The b is already positive, so it goes in the numerator as b to the 9th. And that is the expression simplified.